Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Extra Mile. My name is Gene Gurkoff, and I am here with my hype man, the mighty Max Gurkoff, in his stroller, who is looking especially cute today, barking at all the dogs. It's a beautiful day here in New York City. We're taking a little morning stroll in the park. And oh my God, you guys, today's episode is with the legendary Bart Yasso, the chief running officer of Runner's World for over 30 years. Bart Yasso. Yes, that Bart Yasso, as if there were any other. And I gotta tell you, this interview was so much fun for me. I met Bart last week outside of the Runner's World headquarters in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, and he and I took a nice long walk. They've got a beautiful walking and running path out there that goes through the woods and some meadows, and you could smell like the fresh onions in the air from the meadows, and it was just incredible. And Bart was so gracious and generous with his time, shared a lot of his personal story with us, how running has changed him, how he's seen it change and affect other people. You are going to love this interview. So without any further ado, please turn up your volume and turn on your charity miles and come along for the walk or the run with me and Bart Yasso in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. Every mile matters. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Extra Mile. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, and I am walking today with a running legend, Bart Yasso. Bart, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Gene, thank you, and thanks to Charity Miles. What a cool thing to have. What I love about our sport gives back all the time.
Yes, it does, and I'd love to kind of dive into that with you a little bit later. What's unique about running and what our sport about giving back. But first, would just love to paint a picture for all of our listeners who are hopefully walking or running along with us. Say, where are we right now?
Yeah, so Rodale is the parent company that owns Runner's World magazine, and company I've worked for the past 30 years. My retirement is coming up at the end of the year, but it's been a fun ride to work at Rodale for 30 years and work at Runner's World, work on the Runner's World product brand for 30 years. But yeah, we are in our Rodale little, our headquarters are pretty cool here in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. Yeah. We got a beautiful building. We set a really cool culture here, and then we got this little running path that we have on our property, which is really kind of nice. But Rodale, as you know, is all about fitness and health and organic, and it's been a real pleasure to spend my professional life here for 30 years.
So where Emmaus is in kind of easternish Pennsylvania, we're near Allentown, Bethlehem.
Yes, in the Lehigh Valley, very eastern Pennsylvania. We're only about 18 miles from the Jersey border, and yeah, Emmaus is a small town right close to Allentown, Bethlehem.
And we're in some beautiful country. Looks like we've got some meadows over here to our right.
Yeah, this is a nice little...
Some mountains out here.
Yeah, it's a nice setup. And, people say, Runner's World's in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. Well, Rodale bought Runner's World in 1985 and moved the headquarters from San Francisco into Emmaus, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And it's been here ever since.
And my listeners might be able to hear the birds chirping, maybe a distant train off in the background.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
So
Rodale has been out here for
Rodale's been out here since the company started in 1941 with organic gardening, which is now called Organic Life. And then, some of the other magazines started like Prevention, and we have Men's Health, Women's Health. Mm-hmm. But the whole Runner's World thing, Runner's World started in 1966. Bob Anderson started Runner's World magazine. But Rodale purchased it, like I said, in 1985. And it's been here ever since.
And when did you start with Runner's World?
I started in 87.
Okay, so pretty short thereafter.
Yeah, pretty sure. I met a lot of the editors that migrated from California into Pennsylvania, and just hit it off with them. And I was already living in the Lehigh Valley. So
you grew up here?
Yeah, I grew up here and lived here almost 62 years.
Wow.
I mean, I've literally been all over the world and traveled the world, but my entire life I lived probably within a 40-mile range of where we are right now.
Amazing. And you have the coolest job title of all time. You're the Chief running officer of Runner's World.
Yeah, I've had that title, I believe, since 2007, if I'm not mistaken.
What was your title before that?
And, it was changed over the years, but my favorite title is Chief Running Officer, but I don't even remember what my exact title was before that changed. I know they gave me that title after I got inducted into the Running USA Hall of Champions, and I came back and they said, we're going to promote you and give you a new title and all this stuff. Okay. And then someone came out with Chief Running Officer, and I've been that ever since.
And so when you started with Runner's World, what was your position, or how did you start at Runner's World?
So when I started, I was the guy that would deal with the general public at events. And then...
like a race ambassador?
Yeah, I'd be at the big race expos like New York, Chicago, and Boston. And, I was really the connection between Runner's World, like I said, and the millions of runners out there. I was really hands-on going to events. And also...
Were you racing in those events?
Yeah, back then I raced every event. I don't do that these days, but I was a lot younger, obviously.
Right.
It was easy to do. I was a lot faster, a lot younger. But things change. But I also, when I was back in the office, I connected with race directors. I had a program called the Race Sponsorship Program where we sponsored, at a small level, 7,000 races around the country.
Wow.
So it was a way to connect with the runners, what I call point of contact, like literally in the passion of our sport out at events. And that's how we concentrated on growing Runner's World to the size it is today.
Wow. And so what made you even join Runner's World? You had started running?
I've been a runner since 1977.
Okay. So you'd already been a runner for a long time.
Yeah, and thought of working at Runner's World would always be a cool thing, but, never thought it would be reality. But when it moved here, it was like, wow, Runner's World magazine is in my backyard. And just when I got to meet all the editors, they all said to me, like, you should work here. We like you. And, I don't know, it just kind of worked out. The job they had for me was perfect for me and my personality and what I wanted to do. And, I always tell people I'd be doing these long runs back in the early 80s or late 70s, early 80s thinking, I was never fast enough to make a living off of running. I won some races over the years, but I was never at that high elite level.
Right.
But so that's where I always had those dreams. Wouldn't it be cool if I could get a job where I could see the world, travel the world, and get paid to do it? And, it was sort of a fun little dream and not reality. But it became reality. It's hard to imagine. I look back 30 years later and think, wow, it really did. My dream did come true. I got a job to travel the world, run all over the world, and get paid to do it.
So, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of different interviews and read a lot of different interviews with you. You started running in 1977, and I want to kind of get into why you started running.
Sure.
But you just started talking about something that made me think of some questions that maybe I hadn't been planning on asking you, because I didn't know that Runner's World wasn't always here. I didn't realize that they started somewhere else. So you were a runner for 8 years. You loved it. You'd had this passion and this journey, and all of a sudden Runner's World comes into your backyard and your dream job kind of opens up in front of you.
Yeah, literally.
What were you doing before that happened?
Sure. Yeah, I was trying not to work too much. I was trying to do more running and cycling. I was doing a lot of triathlons. I was really concentrating on triathlons back then. And
really, that's
I was really training a lot. I was riding 400 miles a week and still running 70 miles a week and going to the pool a couple days a week. So, I was having a lot of fun winning a lot of triathlons back then. And I thought, the deal is not to work too much so I can train and go crazy. And I was never really about making a lot of money, so I didn't care. But then when Runner's World came here and I had the opportunity to work here, I remember saying, okay, this is going to be, I feel, the best opportunity in my life. So my personal running and all that stuff is going to go by the wayside, and I'm going to concentrate on my professional life. So that's what I did.
And your professional life became
your
passion.
So it kind of, there was a lot of, like, the stars were aligned. I really lucked out, I think. And but I knew when I got the job, I said, I'm going to work harder, not than anyone at Runner's World, not anyone at Rodale. I was going to work harder than anyone in the running industry to, move up in this company and really what I thought could be reality, go around the world and represent the magazine. It really did happen.
Wow. So what do you think, so some of the part of what Charity Miles is about is finding your purpose.
Yeah.
And how running and walking and biking and being physically active can help us find our purpose. And in a way, running has certainly helped you find your purpose in life. Do you think that if Runner's World hadn't relocated here, that you would have otherwise found your way to Rodale or otherwise found your way to a job that has filled your life with this incredible purpose?
Gee, that's a good question. I certainly hope so, but I don't know. I think when Rodale purchased Runner's World, the same values the Rodale family has are the same values that I have. Like, our values are aligned.
Right.
That was the best thing ever to me. So I don't know. I don't think I would have found that job out there that really fit my personality and my values like I did here. I was really lucky. The Rodale family are just really philanthropic people and, share the same values that I have about organic and, being philanthropic and just being good citizens to the world, not just locally.
That's a really interesting, again, not something that I planned to talk about on my way out here, but I think it's something that we should talk about. So it's close to 8 o'clock in the morning. We got out here. You gave me a nice little tour of the Rodale office, which I was very moved by, and I've always admired Rodale as a company. And Charity Miles, we like to position ourselves as a company with a mission-driven business, and I like to think of myself as a social entrepreneur. And it's one of these things that sometimes people talk about it as if it's something new.
Right.
But Rodale's been doing this forever.
Yeah, Rodale's been doing it a long time, I think right from the beginning. And, when I started 30 years ago, Bob Rodale and his wife, Artie Rodale, were the head of the company, and they were very philanthropic people and very approachable people. That's what I loved about Rodale. Bob Rodale was the head of our company, and he never closed his door as an office. He said, I got to keep my door open because some employee may want to come in and talk to me or need me.
Right.
And he never set that tone like I'm the president. I'm on a pedestal or something.
Right.
He was so approachable and such a great person. And his wife Artie was the same way. And and then they pass it down to their children, the third generation that have it now. And they're the same. I got the same feeling. I could walk right down the hall from my office and talk to our CEO, Maria Rodale. I feel I could go down there at any time and just approach her with an idea or, something that I think about that would help the company. And that's pretty unheard of in the big corporate world these days.
It is. It's becoming more heard of, fortunately. And one of the things I think is really special is that it's not. Certainly being philanthropic is important, and obviously being Charity Miles, that's a big part of what we do. But it's not just about being philanthropic, it's about the work that you do.
Sure.
Your mission is to help people live healthier lives. And not just giving back to charity, but doing good in the work that you produce, whether it's with Men's Health or Runner's World or bicycling or prevention, giving people that knowledge to kind of better themselves and live healthier. Not taking, as you mentioned earlier to me when we were talking, not taking tobacco or alcohol ads before it was cool not to do that.
Yeah, we did that right from the beginning, a long time ago, way before I worked here.
Even things around the office that you were showing me, like the smoker. Can you tell everybody about the smoker's closet?
Smoker's closet. Yeah, when you come into our building, the 3 entrances into our building, I don't know if we have any employees that smoke, but if we do, you cannot bring an outer garment past the front or any of our entrances. You have to hang it up so that you can't contaminate any furniture or really just bring it into our building. And our whole property is smoke free, and it's been like that for a long time.
Right.
Not just inside the building, obviously.
You've got the bike commuters room with all the bikes.
Yeah. I've been commuting on my bike for over 35 years, and I love it. It's so cool to stroll in and, have a place to hang my bike, and all our bathrooms at one end of the building all have showers, and so we're very accommodating to people that want to run to work or walk to work or ride a bike to work.
And by the way, just for everyone else out there, this is a very hilly part of the country. Biking to work is not necessarily the easiest thing, but it's...
Yeah, I live on the other side of the mountain, so I do have it's about a 1.5 mile climb up South Mountain. It wakes me up in the morning. It's a nice wake-up call.
My sister went to Lehigh University, which is right here, and I still hear about the hills that they want to walk up to.
That whole campus is stuck on a hill. I have no idea how they built that campus, but it is an amazing campus. And,
I think it helps everybody with the freshman 15.
Yeah, that's the same mountain range. It's just that's further east of us.
And you guys
Lehigh's what a great campus.
And you guys have that. What was the room that you showed me when we came in? That was like kind of like a meditation?
The Kiva. Yeah, Kiva. Kiva is a Native American spiritual place, and we have it right in the center of our building. And if you're struggling one day or just need a break, you go down to the Kiva, and you can kneel or sit or do yoga, whatever works for you. And we always have those setups, we really believe in the spiritual to get people to thrive and do well. And, no one says, once you punch in, it's working all day. We do believe in, I come out here for breaks and just walk around and kind of rejuvenate and go back in. And, you don't want to stare at your monitor all day or your laptop and just get mesmerized. At some point you need to go out and with lunchtime here you'll see a lot of people take off on bikes and out running, and it's a big thing at lunchtime. And then we have an organic cafe right in our building, so get back from your bike ride or run and hit the organic cafe.
So what do you think? I mean, so a lot of the people out there obviously may not be as fortunate to have Runner's World or Rodale in their backyard, and they might not be in the position where they get to, make the decision to have their, tell their company, we need a Kiva in our building.
We're getting our grass cut today.
Yeah,
I can see that.
We're just walking by a little lawnmower. Pardon the noise. Everybody will be passing in a second.
Yeah, we'll be pass this in a second.
But so, for other people out there, how might they incorporate some of these things into their life?
Yeah, and you're right. Not every office is going to set up a Kiva, a spiritual place, and have yoga classes during work and things that we do. But I really think you can take things into your, take control yourself. I really think everyone needs at least like 2 breaks a day to just go out and release. And, you can't just be a slave to your computer and phone and, just technology. I mean, I love technology, and you use it to enhance and so you can work better and share ideas with more people. But I don't think you need to be a slave to it. I really believe you can be more creative, taking a break, going out and enjoying some little bit of the outdoor, and then come back to the computer. I really believe in that regeneration or rejuvenation. And it really helps out.
It really does. And for me personally, I try to walk at least 4 miles a day to get my 10,000 steps in. Let's take it back a little bit to how you started running.
Yeah.
1977?
1977, yeah.
All right. I wasn't born yet.
It was. Yeah. I hear that a lot.
But I was almost born. I was born in 78. I'm not as young as
Wow, you look young, man. That's awesome.
My employees constantly remind me of that. My team constantly reminds me of that. What were you like when you started running?
So people ask me all the time about, the passion I have and why I really still profess running, and I go a little bit above and beyond just my job as I go out and engage in the running community, and it all has to do with running saved my life. I mean, I owe the sport a lot. The reason I say that is I look back at the people I was socializing with back in the 70s, and I pulled up like 20 names of people that I knew, and none of them are alive today.
Wow, really?
And they're all dead from either suicide, drug overdose, or alcoholism, and that would have been me. But I knew I was leading a bad lifestyle. I thought partying was the way to go, and drugs were the thing to do, and it just wasn't the case.
So how old were you at the time?
21, 22, when I really, I was lucky enough, I was still young enough when I made the change. And I said, I want to live a healthy lifestyle. I don't want to be doing this. And, I didn't think of running as a sport that I wanted to do or a job. I thought of running as a way just to go out and get healthy and
Had you
make
seen
this
others
change.
running?
Oh, yeah. There was a local guy, Dick Metzger, who I used to see running every morning, and I thought, man, that's what I want to do. And, I would say that but not do it.
Right.
And then, but then I started doing it. And then a real good friend of mine, was intoxicated and came out of a bar and got hit by a car. And God, when I went to see him in the hospital, I thought, this is going to be me. And I really made that change. And I said, I'm leading a healthy lifestyle. It was a wake-up call. Yeah, there were a couple things that were wake-up calls, but I really realized I got to make the change now. And I did. I started running just to get healthy. And then my older brother George, he challenged me to a race once he saw how much I was running. And he said, and I looked at him, I said, you can't beat me in a race. That's crazy. And he said, well, let's go do it. So
how far was the race?
It was a 10K race about 20 miles north of Bethlehem in this little community. And my brother beat me in that race. I couldn't believe it. And,
was he training? Was he running like you were?
Oh, yeah. He was a very good athlete. And but he was more of a football player and a bigger guy. And I just didn't think he could run that fast. But he ran fast that day. He ran like, just jumping in a 10K, he ran like 38 minutes.
Wow.
And he was 210-pound guy.
What?
I mean, he was big. I mean, he was all muscle, but still, he was a big guy.
Really fast.
Yeah, and I was like, he beat me. He passed me around mile 5.
Another wake-up call?
Left me in the dust. Yeah, and that's when I said, okay, I gotta figure out what I'm doing wrong. And that's when I got serious about training. I was running a lot, but not specifically training for anything. And that was the wake-up call. Read Runner's World and really follow a plan and not start out too quickly and all the things you learn. And then I raced him again and beat him, and then a couple of years later I would race him, and I could the bet, whatever we bet, I would spot him 5 minutes or something like that. Right. So I improved a lot once I got serious. And but my brother George, I owe so much to him because he was the one that encouraged me and told me I could really be good at this if I wanted to. And, I didn't believe in myself. He believed in me more than I believed in myself. And unfortunately, he passed away from prostate cancer in 2003. He was a young guy and left behind a wife and 3 kids. It was hard one of those tough things to experience, but I owe so much to him.
Now, that's interesting. So, a couple things that you mentioned there that I kind of want to talk about, or maybe ask you. Well, first of all, sorry to hear about your brother passing away. But it sounds like you guys had a really good and meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
Do you think, when you were growing up, obviously you're a very talented runner. You know, a lot of people start running, but they're not going to run. You've run 240 marathons. I mean, you have some speed in you. Did you grow up playing sports? Did you grow up running track?
I was always active and did a lot of different sports in my early days. But then somewhere in those early high school years, I just kind of went down that wrong path. Thought alcohol and drugs were the way to go, and then I got really into alcohol, way too much. And once you're in that world, if you hang around with people that do the same thing, you don't know how bad off you are until you can get out of that space and look in and say, wow, that was not where I wanted to be.
So what was your body like? Do you remember when you started to run? Do you remember your first run?
Oh yeah, I do. I remember, I had a dog, Brandy, and take her up on the hill and watch Brandy run around. And that's when I would start running around. And I just thought a mile was a long way to run. And then, and then when I started doing these 3-mile runs, and then I would see these guys, I'd run down around Lehigh University around a cross-country course. And I'd make it 3 miles or 4 miles thinking, wow, that's a long way to run. And then you finish in the parking lot, and then there's another runner there, and you see a guy like with a Boston Marathon t-shirt on. And I'm like, God, that dude ran the Boston Marathon. That's unbelievable. But that's where these ideas come. That's where I said I got to do that race. And but I really didn't think it would come to fruition. I would say that kind of stuff, and then I was still running, but I never thought about 26.2. That's a long way to go.
Well, I mean, it's kind of you talked about the drugs and the alcohol, but a lot of running is peer pressure in a positive way too, and you kind of had a similar experience. Showing up to my first 5-mile race, thinking that was the farthest that anybody ever ran ever, and seeing people with marathon shirts on. And when you surround yourself with certain types of people, it really makes you kind of rethink like what you're capable of and what you want to achieve. At least that's what happened for me.
Yeah, what we call like-minded people. And the running community is such an inspiring place. I meet people every weekend at these events that just overcome so many odds just to get to the starting line. If they finish this race, it's monumental what they do, not only for themselves but to inspire others. And I always get approached every day. I mean, every single day, whether it's a phone call, an email, a personal interaction. People come up to me and say my story inspires them. And in the big picture, I'm a shy guy. I don't know what I've done to inspire them, but I'm just happy I inspired them in some way. But my story, I don't think is anything compared to what's out there. People that I meet, almost, for many years, I've been going to events about 40 plus weekends out of the year. I'm somewhere at an event, and the stories I meet, the people I meet, it's incredible. I mean, how do you go through such a traumatic thing in life and then say, okay, I'm going to run a marathon or a half marathon? Like, I don't know how that happens. Whether it's surviving cancer or a loss of a loved one or losing a limb. And, these people then say they weren't a runner before this traumatic occurrence in their life. And then they come, they use running as a way to overcome the obstacle that they're faced. That they face, and then they go out and they excel in our sport. And wow, it just gives me chills thinking about some of the people I've encountered.
So any that come to mind, or?
Oh man, the problem is there's thousands, but I just it's hard to pinpoint. But what I love is there's a lot of feature stories over my 30 years at Runner's World that I didn't work on as a journalist. But, I brought the story back into our office and got the ball rolling. So I sort of did work on it as a journalist, and said, this is a really good story. We got to dig deeper. And, my favorite stories are the people that don't think their journey is a story. Just that they think their life is normal. And I'm like, no, your life is not normal. You've overcome a lot. Just as they say, to get to that starting line. And then to finish is sometimes a miracle for some people.
Right.
What they've overcome. But
what do you
know,
think
it's just simple. I always ask the question, what got you into the sport? Share your journey. Mm-hmm. And the answers are incredible sometimes. You know, and like I say, we did a book. We took all like what we thought. David Willey was our editor-in-chief at the time, and we did this book and thought, you know, here's like the 30 best stories in runner's world over the years, and we combined them into a book. And when I looked at that book, like I think it was 14 of those stories were something I personally worked on or started the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Thought these would be good stories. But I always ask that question, you know, if you want one example, like San Francisco Marathon, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something. I can't keep track of all the travel.
Yeah.
But I remember, I thought of this guy just today, this past week, because of he lives in Miami and all the troubles going on with this hurricane, Irma. And I remember meeting this guy, Alexis. Alexis. And he was running the San Francisco Marathon. He was all about BQing and running fast and all this, you know, improving his time all the time. And he came to my talk that I did the day before the race. Mm-hmm. And he came up to me and he said, my name's Alexis, I'm from Miami. And he said, this is exactly the talk I needed. I'm going to go out tomorrow and just enjoy the day. I'm not going to worry about my time. I want to be like you. I want to, you know, experience the world. And I said, oh, it's cool, Alexis. And, you know, I remember shaking his hand, and he bought one of my books. And, you know, but I'm really good at remembering people, their faces and their names. Yep. And so next day in the marathon, I'm at like mile 8, and I hear this voice next to me. Can I run with you just for a little bit? And I look over. I said, Alexis from Miami. And he couldn't believe that I remembered his name. Yeah. And I said, yeah, we can run together. And we're on the Golden Gate Bridge at the time. Wow. And I said, look at this scenery we're in. And the first thing he said to me is, oh, your talk yesterday, it's just what I needed. I'm out here enjoying it. I didn't put any pressure on myself to get a specific time. And he said it was such a joy. And that's when I looked at him and I said, okay, Alexis, tell me your story, man. How did you get into this? And he looked at me and said, you're serious? I said, yeah. So here he was living in Cuba under Castro's regime, wanted out. He and his buddy, I'm looking at a little deer over here looking at us.
Oh, wow. There's a deer, like literally
staring at us. He's trying to
20 feet from us.
Yeah, but he doesn't think we see him. I like that. He's frozen.
Wow.
But anyway, Alexis' story.
That is so cool.
He's living in Cuba under Castro and wants to get out. He talks his buddy into buying a kayak, and they're going to kayak out of Cuba. This is back in the 90s when a lot of people who were doing this never made it to the U.S.
Yeah, a lot less than a kayak.
Yes. And so they actually do it. He gets in a kayak with his buddy who didn't know how to swim. Alexis didn't know how to swim. They never didn't have a kayak before. They really didn't even know how to kayak. And they wait till sunset and take off. And it took them 65 hours to kayak to the U.S. They were out in these shipping channels almost getting run over by freighter, by big boats. They didn't even know really where they were going. They just knew they were supposed to head north once they started. Wow. And they didn't have enough food and water because they didn't think about how much fluids they would be burning by kayaking. And they thought, oh, we're only going to be out here 2 days. Well, this little water is plenty. And that wasn't enough. But when they got out there, you know, they were going the wrong way for a while. Jesus. And they were going to come to an island that wasn't the U.S. and they would have been sent back to Cuba. But back then there were philanthropic people, Cuban people in Miami that would be in small planes and go over and drop water and food to Cubans trying to get to the U.S. Yeah. So they were out there and they saw a soda bottle being dropped and it had a note in it. And they picked up the note and it said, don't go to this island. You have to continue, north. This is not the U.S. You're going to get sent back to Cuba. And if they would have gotten sent back to Cuba, they would have been thrown in jail because they tried to leave Cuba. So eventually they got steered the right way, but 65 hours in a kayak, they finally get to the U.S. And he did have family in Miami, so he was accepted in. But then he became a school teacher and, part of the running club. And, it's amazing his journey. I mean, stuff like that you just can't script.
Right.
I hear that I experience that all the time. What is your story is the question to ask. And then you hear these journeys. Morning. And then you hear these journeys that are just like, wow, just blows me away. But that's a typical example. And then there are some tougher ones where, there is, I remember this one woman reaching out to me and, she got raped at a park in front of her 2-year-old daughter.
Oh, God.
And this image of what she couldn't get over was this image of, well, one, getting raped, and two, having it happen in front of her young daughter in this park. And she was in a miserable marriage. She was in a really suicidal way. And, she was reaching out to me. I mean, I'm not a trained therapist. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do by answering her in a certain way and trying to really connect with her and communicate with her. And, I kept encouraging her to use running to, stay focused and positive and get out there and engage with the running community. And she started this running club for women, and it really brought her around, got her from a suicidal state to a very successful place in life. And she used running to overcome what she faced, and stuff like that. I mean, it just when you get emails like that, I have that first email she sent me saved in my computer, and it's chilling. I don't know how people overcome something like that, something so traumatic, but running helped her turn it around. She was really in a suicidal state, and thank God she didn't take that step of suicide and decided to fight the demons that were bothering her, and she used running to, but also socially used running. I think running with the other women that she was running with really, I'm sure they talked a lot when they were out there.
How do you mentioned earlier when you were talking about running with your brother and where you were in your life, how you didn't really believe in yourself at that moment. But through the running and through your brother helping you learned to believe in yourself. What was it in your own journey that running helped? How did running help you change your perception of yourself, or change your story of what you were about?
I think the running, once I realized I was good at it and I wanted to do it, I think just that power of showing myself what the hard work would do for me. And that's where I kind of took that running mindset and put it into my professional life and all facets of my life, and just use that passion and strength and determination and use it in everything you do. But running definitely taught me that I had it, and that if I wanted it, it was there. But you had to you gotta want it. If you don't really want to go out and get it, it's never going to happen. And I think running was a thing that proved to me and showed to me that I really wanted it. I really wanted to change my life, and I really wanted to do well professionally. Have fun with the sport of running. And I still look back, I just can't believe the places I've been all over the world, the Arctic Circle, Antarctica, South Africa, Tanzania. I mean, I could go on and on.
Wow.
Just how could running take me there?
Yeah.
But it did.
Well, I'll ask the question because, we're on this is a walking podcast. How did running take you there? Like how, and you wrote a book, or you used to give this talk. I'm not sure if you still give it. Don't let...
Never limit where running can take you. Physically, spiritually, emotionally, geographically.
Yeah.
And I had that mindset, to never limit where running could take me. And I was a person that's very complacent. If I get in a groove and things are good, why change things? Things are good, but that's not the way to be. You really have to push. You always have to take things to the next level. And that's what running taught me, and that's what I tried to do with my running and with my professional life and personal life. Make things better, just keep trying new things, and but it was always that focus I got from running that would really help me. And I think that's why I was successful in my professional life, and it certainly was fun to win races in the old days. I certainly don't win races anymore, but it was, when I look back, people always say, what's your favorite race, or what do you remember? And all the memories have nothing to do with winning a race or running a fast time. They all have to do with the people I met, my family, things like that. When I think back upon my favorite parts of running, it all comes back to just amazing experiences. My favorite race is the Comrades Marathon in South Africa, and it has nothing to do with running the 56 miles through the hills of South Africa. It has everything to do with sponsoring South African children through World Vision, and actually getting to meet those children when I was there. My older brother George, who always he was a rugby player after his football career, and he played rugby for 20 years. Wow. He always wanted to play rugby in South Africa, but during apartheid, none of that stuff ever happened. And so going to South Africa, thinking of my brother, and meeting my sponsored children, and it was a magical dream. And Comrades is a race that's been around since 1921.
Why don't you tell the listeners, because I've heard you speak about Comrades before. I think this is, and I have some questions I don't want to ask you about it, so I'm glad that you brought it up. But just before we get into that, just so that the other people who are walking along with us have a sense of what Comrades is, and your experience there.
Yeah, so it's a 56-mile race in South Africa. They call it a marathon, even though it's 56 miles.
Right.
To South Africans, 56 miles is a marathon. They're a hardy group of people. But it's a race with a checkered past, because in those early years and through those apartheid years, they didn't allow the black citizens to run Comrades, which was really awful. But it was the running community and the white South African runners that said, hey, you have to allow the black citizens to run. Go down this. If you don't allow the black citizens to run, we're not going to run. If we don't run, you don't have a race. You literally have nothing. And so that's when this idea started, and they allowed the black citizens to run.
Even before apartheid ended, they were.
Yes. And during those tough apartheid years, like in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, the black citizens flourished in Comrades. And it was the only time in those tough apartheid years that a lot of these black citizens would be revered as, the most famous people in South Africa, which didn't happen during apartheid, but it did happen, because of Comrades. So it was really cool to think that a running race could play such a significant role in abolishing, it didn't abolish apartheid, but many people think it pushed the barometer to the abolishment of apartheid, because it showed white citizens helping black athletes during Comrades, which just didn't happen in South Africa during apartheid. I mean, it really was a tough place to live.
It's another instance about running can change our perception of not just ourselves personally, but societally what we're
you're
capable
exactly
of
right.
About.
Yeah, and 50 miles was my favorite distance to race.
Really?
Yeah, I love 50 miles because 100 miles gets a little, there's a little walking in there, unless you're really at the highest level, like a Ian Sharman who can race 100 miles at 7:40 pace and not take a walk break. Yeah, but I, on the first 50-mile race I did, I had no idea what pace I could run for 50 miles. It was a warm day and a pretty rolling hill course, Lake Warmug in Connecticut, and I said, I just pulled this out of my hat like well, I think I can run like 7:20 per mile for 50 miles.
Oh, God.
And I think I averaged like 7:23 per mile for 50 miles.
Wow.
And that's when I said, oh, this is my distance. I like this 50-mile stuff. And so that's when I really took heart to Comrades. Like, Comrades is 56 mile. I'm going to go kill that race. And then, I didn't want to do Comrades during apartheid because I felt going to South Africa during apartheid would be like promoting apartheid or, accepting it. Yep. So I waited till apartheid was abolished and I'm going to go run Comrades. And I entered that thing. And, at the time I was running pretty fast for 50 miles. And I got sick and never made it there. So I waited a couple of years, entered it again, all ready to go. I got sick again, this Lyme disease stuff.
Right.
So when Comrades went on, I was in hospital, so I never even got to the race. And then I kind of just put it out of my mind. It would never happen. And then 2009, I said, okay. When I finished my book, My Life on the Run, I finished the book saying my only regret is I never run Comrades. And, because at that point I was trying to step away from running. I had so many physical problems from Lyme disease.
Right.
And
people don't know that you're walking with a little bit of a swagger right now.
Yeah, Lyme disease did a lot of damage on the right side of my body, but I hang in there, do what I can.
Yeah.
But doing Comrades was that thing that really was my only running regret. I got everything that I thought I could get out of the sport and had literally taken me all over the world, but I really wanted to do Comrades. And I just remember being in a hospital when the race was happening and thinking, God, I'll never get there. But 2008 when I finished the book, planted the seed that I should really try. In 2009 I said, okay, I got to do this. So I went over in 2010 and finished it. Not fast, but I made it before they closed the finish line down at 12 hours. And it was a magical experience running through the hills of South Africa.
It's a hilly course, isn't it?
It's a hilly course, and talking to a lot of the black South Africans who struggled through apartheid and were never given the opportunity to compete nationally, and to see them have this opportunity and to watch them go out and crush it at Comrades.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool experience. And that's, to think, I did this little interview at the start up on the platform and looking out at 22,000 athletes. And the first vision I had was thinking 20 years earlier, there wouldn't be one black citizen with a bib number on.
Wow.
And I looked at all these black citizens out there, when that national anthem was played, they big smiles on their face and tears run down their cheeks, and wow, it gives you chills.
I get chills right now.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps.
Everyone needs opportunity. Once you get that opportunity, then it's up to you to go out and prove yourself. But people need the opportunity, and that's what the black citizens, they were given that opportunity. And that's why when I talked to a lot of the black South African runners after the race, and that's what they said. We just want that opportunity to go out and express ourselves and to run as fast as we can. And they didn't hold a grudge that they were suppressed for all those years. Mm-hmm. They really are just happy the change happened, and they're going to go out there and do it. And the first black South African to win New York City Marathon was Willie Matolo. Mm. He was always one of my idols. And when I finished Comrades, there was a tall South African guy there, and he said, Bart, and he gave me a hug and kissed my cheek, and I'm like, you're Willie Matolo. And he had no clue how much this guy meant to me. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Wow. I really, I got so many chills that weekend. It just is amazing to me.
Wow.
But, very similar to our sport, the women today, there are now more female runners than male runners in the U.S. And, 50 some years ago, there were literally a handful of women running because they weren't given the opportunity. I mean, this year at Boston, to watch Catherine Switzer go out and finish Boston at a time almost exactly what she did 50 years ago when they tried to remove her off the course because she was a woman. And we gave women the opportunity and brought them into our sport. And to say they flourished is an understatement. To say they took our sport to another level and, spread the love of running socially it's unbelievable. The greatest in all my, 40 years of running, 30 years working at Runner's World, the coolest thing to look back on is this explosion of women into our sport. And not only all the women that came into our sport, but what they have done and created these groups and encourage each other. And that wasn't happening back in the 70s. It really, we were called the lonely people.
Right.
It was called the loneliness of the long distance runner. Because you go out for a 22-mile run, if you saw another runner out there, you were like, oh my God, there's someone else out here running 20 miles or whatever. I mean, it was just a different world.
Yeah.
And, I know women really worked on the socialization, and it's pretty cool to be in a position I was at Runner's World to actually physically see this happen.
Well, I think that you, in part, you've seen it happen, but you've really been a leader in helping to make it happen. And running as a sport and Runner's World as probably the leader of that sport has really helped to grow such an inclusive movement. And changes perceptions. At least for me, being part of the community and seeing all sorts of different people. It's a very humanizing thing when you're running next to somebody who you might otherwise have nothing in common with, but you're sharing this very human struggle.
Yes.
Physical struggle. You're breathing in the same pace. You're moving in the same direction. Your legs might be hurting in the same way, and it helps you realize that we're all human.
Yes.
No matter where you come from. It's one of the things I love about races like the New York City Marathon. People from all over the world.
Yeah.
Countries that you'd never...
Yeah. You hear so many different languages being spoken at the start of the New York City Marathon. You have the New York City Marathon usually has more countries represented than the Olympics.
Yeah.
And it's as global as you can find in running.
It's what hooked me when I got into it, running the Chicago and the New York City Marathons in 2002, and just all the people there. I knew that it was a community that I wanted to be a part of, and just amazing how we were all sharing this experience together, all writing maybe different stories, but kind of the same story.
Yeah.
I really loved it. And I guess there's some things that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
What do you think is unique about running, if anything? Because maybe I'm just not aware as to how it happens in other sports like golf, because I don't golf.
Yeah, I golf a fair amount. So yeah.
Do you see this in golf?
No, I see the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, the exact, a country club, people pay a lot of money so other people can't be there.
Right.
They set up this fence and they keep people out.
Right.
And, I golf with a couple women that, my running friends, and women aren't encouraged on the golf course. And the women I play with can golf. They're good golfers. And, the guys see them coming, they're like, oh my God, there's a woman on the golf course. And then I walk up to them and say, I got $50 right here that she can outdrive you. And none of them ever take me up on it because they're like, this guy must know something. And, so women are still not encouraged like they are in running. And, it does go on. But, I always, at my job at Runner's World, working on all the facets of the magazine, the website, the podcast, whatever it is, the one thing I challenge myself every day when I walk in my office, I have to convince someone or a group of people today that aren't runners that they can be a runner. And how do I do that? Different ways to connect with people. But I always say all I have to do is encourage people to get out there, take those first couple steps, get started. And then when I convince them to go to the local running store, or be a member of the local running club, or do a 5K race in their hometown, once they get out there and take one of these next levels to engage in the running community, I can walk away because the running community takes over. And you don't know about the power of the running community until you're involved in it like we are. But an outsider would never know. I never knew. But running community is very powerful and very engaging and very helpful and very encouraging. So I always feel I just got to get those people to take those first steps, get them out to some type of group run or a 5K race or, a local running store group run or a running club group run. And once they do that, I can walk away from that group. The running community has taken over. These people are engaged and they're going to stick to running and take it to another level. And that's a pretty cool thing. I don't have to engage and I don't have to reach out to someone and say, hey, there's new runners in Albuquerque or wherever. It just happens. And it's a cool thing to think back on. But I challenge myself every day when I go in the office. I got to reach out to some person, some group, someone, some way. I'm going to get some new runners out there.
All right, well, hopefully maybe there's some people listening to this who are walkers that are going to become runners. And we'll write into Bart and let him know.
Yeah, those are my favorite emails. I just got one yesterday. This guy wrote to me, came through Twitter, and he just said he came to my talk at the Shamrock Marathon, and he did a race or two, but never really thought this running thing was for him, and he wasn't that good at it, and he thought, why am I even doing this? He came to my talk and he said, I'm going to be a runner. This guy convinced me into being a runner. And, he told me all the stuff he's done since he came to my talk. And wow. I made him believe in himself.
Yeah.
Sort of like I was the George Yasso, my brother George to me, I was to him. And it's pretty cool to think of that. But that's the beauty of our sport. We engage and encourage each other. And those are my favorite kind of messages to get.
Right.
People say, and I get those all the time. They say, you told me not to limit my running, and I'm heading off to Antarctica, and they just wouldn't think it would be possible to do some of these things that they're doing. My tagline, my new tagline on my new book is, and I think of this always, is when the gun goes off, we all follow the same path from the start line to the finish line. There's a course set up, gun goes off, we all do it. Some do it faster than others, obviously, but we all follow the same path. But if you interviewed 5,000 people or 2,000 people, whatever, how many people are in this race, there'd be 2,000 different stories how they got to the starting line.
Right.
And that's the beauty of our sport. None of the stories would be the same. They're all this, how they ended up where they are. And that's
and because of that, they're all going to experience that path differently.
Yes.
So that race is going to.
Yep.
You're going to see that race.
Yeah. So the book I just came out with, Race Everything, that's the premise of it. Like we all follow the same path when the gun goes off, and we all run from the starting line to the finish line. But there's 5,000, 10, whatever, how many people in the race, different journeys, how this runner got to the starting line.
Right. So, on that, I kind of want to bring it back to comrades for a second, because there's something that I wanted to ask you about. You talked about, that was one of you're doing maybe the Chicago Marathon coming up.
Yeah.
If you feel up to it.
Yeah, if I'm physically able to, I'll do Chicago for sure.
And, you've done so much. I mean, you've done just... People out there might not know. You stopped counting at about 150, but you can't.
I don't want to know. Yeah.
Hundreds of marathons, thousands of races, 5 Ironman, Badwater,
146 miler.
Back when it was 146, not this soft 135.
Yeah. They make things easier. It's crazy.
So you've done so much, and then you do comrade. You kind of cap it off, with comrades, and you're still doing a little bit here and there, and you're at, like you said, 40 races a year, traveling every weekend. I mean, you tour more than the Grateful Dead and Bruce Springsteen. Like, what is... And you talk about not being complacent and never limiting where running can take you. What is new? Like, what are you learning new? Or comrades, what were you learning new about yourself on that course?
Yeah, so when I was out in comrades, I mean, what I'm reminded of is, I was in such a bad way when I went over to comrades. I was a physical mess from my Lyme disease, and my whole right side of my body was in rough shape. And I thought, how am I going to run 56 miles? I went to a local 5K, and I barely broke 30 minutes, or I didn't break 30 minutes, and I killed myself to get to that finish line in the 5K, and I thought, how am I going to run 56 miles? I mean, it didn't seem possible, but I figured if I got to South Africa, I would have to do it. You know, if I spent all the money and time to get there, I'm going to do it. Even though it was a work assignment, I spent a lot of Runner's World money to get there. And,
right.
you know, I just remember getting this email from a guy by the name of Bobby McGee, a South African guy who lives in the U.S. for a long time these days. And he sent me this email about, you know, I was born to run comrades. I have to do it. And his email moved me. And, you know, he knew I was hurting. And I just remember going to that start and thinking, you know, my brother, and I just had to get there. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, 2 or 3 miles into that race, if I saw somebody like me limping that badly and in so much pain, I would have said, hey, buddy, you know, stop right now. Like, you can't put yourself through it. And there's video of me, like, 2 miles in the race. I am limping so badly.
Suffering.
Yeah, I was in pain badly. But you just never know why somebody's doing something. And that's what, you know, I learned. Like, I was determined to finish this race, and I had the mindset, if I never did another race, that's fine with me. Like, this was my only regret, so I had to go out and do it. And I was not doing it just for myself. You know, I had other reasons to do it. So, you know, I see someone out there struggling. We don't know their story. Mm-hmm. So, you know, sometimes I think, okay, I have to tell this person to stop, because I can see, you know, by their gait how much pain they're in, and then it comes back to myself. I say, okay, you don't know their story. Right. You know, they may be doing this race for someone else, or they may have something that, you know, let them go out there and do it. So really, that thing that we don't know everyone's story. To me, it all comes back to that following people's journey. You know,
are you learning, you know, with all of the story that you've written so far for yourself and all the stories that you've heard from so many people, is the story still evolving? Are you learning new parts of the story? Was the pain in Comrades maybe different than pain you'd felt in another race than in Badwater?
Yeah, I mean, Badwater was fun pain. Like, I was physically able to run 146 miles, and of course it's painful to run 146 miles through Death Valley in the 123 degrees or whatever it is. But that's, you know, it's painful, but I call good pain.
Right.
Like, we do, I always say we as runners, we pay to put ourselves in pain.
Right.
Most people don't do that.
About that.
Yeah, but, you know, I am always learning. Like, you know, one of my other favorite feature stories in the magazine was the running with the Amish. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this Amish community out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, about 75 miles from where we are right now. I didn't know there were Amish runners.
I didn't know there were Amish runners.
And there were a handful of Amish runners that ran at night, so no one could see them, and they ran on the Amish fields.
They ran, no one could see them because they didn't want the other Amish to know they were running?
Well, it's not encouraged in their community, because it's sort of like, it's like a vanity? Selfish thing. Yeah. And so they did it at night in traditional Amish clothing, you know, black pants, suspenders, cotton shirt, and they go out and run, and then they want to run with me. Like, I don't understand how this all happens to me, but right. You know, I get an email from this Mennonite guy who's kind of helping these Amish runners, and they want to run with Bart Yasso. So, you know, a guy says, would I come out there? And I'm like, yes, I'll come out there. I'll be out there in 2 hours if you want me to. Wow. But we picked a date, and I went out there and ran with these Amish guys, and my God, they ran me into the ground. They were so fast. And we ran through these Amish fields, stepping in cow crap, and it was awesome. And they knew my story. And they said to me, I remember we're out there, and one Amish guy says, where do you want to run that you haven't been? And I said, right here. I said, I can't believe I'm running with 5 Amish guys through the Amish fields in the dark. I said, this is unbelievable. This is where I want to be. And that wasn't the answer they thought. They thought I was going to say Greenland or Iceland or something like that. But I said, no. This is so unique and such a cool experience for me. I've always been personally fascinated with the Amish, growing up in Pennsylvania and physically seeing them all the time. Like, how can they live their lifestyle as the world's changing around them? And it was always fascinating to me. And now I'm running with a handful of Amish, and they call me Bart, and I'm like, wow. So they asked me to come back, and I said, I will come back if you get some of the Amish women to run. So when I went back, we had some of the Amish women run. They had their cotton dresses that went all the way down to their ankles and up to their neck, and their bonnets on, and they ran me into the ground. They're just such fit people because of their lifestyle.
Yeah, they lead a clean life.
And so then they asked me to come back again and speak to the entire community. And so I'm speaking in this barn in the middle of nowhere, trying to sell this Amish community on running, and really letting the Amish community know that there is already this group of runners called Vela Springa, which in Pennsylvania Dutch means let's run, or let's run together. And it's unbelievable to me. And I go back out there, and now all these young kids come running up to me saying, hey, Mr. Yasso, we're out there running. And I'm like, wow, how can I don't know how that can happen, to be honest. Like, how the stars aligned that I end up with Amish friends that run, and I can go out to the Amish community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and the Amish know me. Like, wow. How could that be? And running is that connective tissue that made it all happen. And, that's the power of our sport. And, they had this big half marathon, which actually was just this past weekend, the Bird in Hand half marathon. Mm-hmm. And
Bird in the Hand?
Bird in the Hand is a town in Lancaster, right outside of Lancaster. Name. Yeah. And you go out there now, and there's so many Amish running the race, doing the kids run or the 5K and the half marathon. And, now it's almost commonplace. But the thing they did, which I love, is that Amish community, they did a little mission statement. They run to be healthy, but they also do it to encourage others. They're not just about themselves.
Right.
So when they have that kind of mission statement, then the bishop can't come down on them and say, hey, you can't do this because you're getting trophies and winning races. And but, they were smart. They realized right away it's not about themselves. It's about helping the community. And, the Amish were these hard-working farmers for all these years, but after you have 5 kids, and you can't give your farm to all 5 kids,
right?
And they're really landlocked in like this 10-mile square area in Lancaster County. So now they are carpenters and woodworkers, and they've taken on different professions. And running came along at the time where there started to be a couple like overweight Amish.
Really?
Because it wasn't as, they didn't work as hard as a farmer does. And so to have running, it's really helped them, they don't have the heart disease problems that the rest of the U.S. has. But they were on that verge of turning into us, sort of, being less active. But the running thing has taken off, and it's amazing to witness. The last time I was at that race, they had me give out the awards. And when I was at the award ceremony, all the young age groups were won by Amish kids.
Wow.
They were so much faster than all the other kids. It was unbelievable. But this past Boston Marathon, which was that warm day, I think it was 3 of the original 5 Amish that I ran with. They ran together at Boston. They all ran right around 250.
Wow.
Yeah. And they don't run a lot of miles. And they really, they can't, if they really take running too seriously, the bishop is going to come down on them.
Right.
And
well, 250's got to be pretty serious.
Yeah, I mean, they're running, but they're not running as much as most 250 marathoners are running.
Are they wearing still traditional Amish garb when they're running?
Sometimes they do wear running clothes.
Yep.
But most of the time I see them, they are in those long black pants, suspenders, white cotton shirt. I remember one of my local running buddies, the first time he did that Bird in Hand half marathon, he thought he was the bomb. He's going to break 120 in the half marathon.
Whoa.
You know, he comes
Yeah.
screaming in thinking he's the coolest thing ever, and about 100 yards from the finish line, this Amish guy in wool pants and a cotton shirt and suspenders just leaves him in the dust. And I mean, just zip by him. And
Sorry, guys, we're just going by another lawnmower.
Yeah,
Hold on one
sorry
second.
about that.
No problem.
And yeah, it really changed his perspective. He thought, you know, he thought he was the bomb. He thought he was the coolest. And then this Amish guy left him standing still, and he was like, wow, how did that guy do? It was a warm day to be wearing wool pants, full-length black wool pants, and a cotton shirt and suspenders. But that's what the Amish are used to. So
Yep.
to them, it's just a normal day.
Amazing. So we're kind of coming back around to the office here, and before we sign off, I want to bring it back to that never limit where running can take you, and
Yeah.
no complacency. But you're about to retire.
Yes. I'm
And
about to
you've-
become a little complacent. Yeah. But
So how are you thinking of that as you retire? What's next for you?
yeah, so I really don't know exactly what the future holds, but I'm retiring more because of physical reasons. I just can't take the rigors of traveling 40 weeks a year, and just all the travel is hard.
Yeah.
I'd love it because I get to meet people all over the world, but it really is hard on
Takes a
my
lot,
body.
yeah.
And I'm also at the retirement age, so a lot of things lined up. 30 plus years at Runner's World. I'll be at the retirement age, so I can step away, and I'm really doing it because I physically need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I did say, and I will stay engaged in the running community, just at a smaller scale. And hopefully I can get some of my health back and maybe run well again. We'll see.
Yeah.
Obviously I can't run the times I ran many years ago, but I could try to run well within my age group and that kind of stuff. And that would be a dream. And I think traveling less, I can get a little healthier. So we'll see what happens. But I do plan to stay engaged in the running community because I'm so inspired by the running community. So I want to stay involved in some way, but not at the scale of
Not 40.
traveling the 40 events a year and going all over the world. I'm really going to back off on that, and we'll see where it plays out.
Is there a goal that maybe deep in you've thought about wanting to tackle, or a place that you'd like to go? Or?
Yeah, I've always said that there's one place when I go there, when I come home, I feel like I left home. Like Tanzania feels more like home than the United States to me.
Really?
I don't know why, but every time I go to Tanzania, I just love it there. And when I leave, I feel like I left home. And it's the only place that does it to me. I also love mountains, so I've done a lot of trips to
Kilimanjaro.
Nepal, and yeah, I just love Nepal's another place that's pretty special to me. So Nepal, Peru, Tanzania are three places that, of all my travels, really, really, resonate with me. Not the people, the surroundings, the mountains, a little bit of everything. And then, of course, if I would throw a fourth one in there, South Africa would be a fun place to return to, and keep seeing those changes, how the abolishment of apartheid, and all these years later, the country keeps improving and people have more opportunity. So yeah, if there is a goal out there, that's the one thing I would like to keep going. I just wouldn't do it at Runner's World.
this pace.
Is just keep trying to give people the opportunity to go out and run, and we'll see where it takes them.
Wow.
There's got to be other Bart Yassos out there.
There's a big
So-
shoes to fill.
Yeah,
Those are
but there
big
really
shoes
has
to
to be,
fill.
like, somebody just doesn't realize what running could do for them, like it did for me. So they don't have to be the chief running officer of Runner's World, but they could end up running all over the world and engaging in the running community, or whatever. They don't have to do everything I've done, but some of it. I always tell people, like Badwater, do it vicariously. You don't need to go out and run Badwater.
Right.
It's brutal, I can tell you, but it is. Watch it on the internet or pay attention to it.
We had these two members, the Jenkins brothers from England, that did a double Badwater, where they ran there and back. Which just
and then Marshall Ulrich, I think, did it 3 consecutive times
Crazy.
or 4. And I don't know how people do this stuff, because once is enough. But, people, they challenge themselves in different ways. You just, the mind is a powerful thing, and people think, okay, I just don't want to just run 146 miles at Death Valley. I'm going to run back, and I be self-sufficient. I'm like, I don't know how people do it. One thing I don't talk about often, but actually the most fun thing I've done athletically is riding my bike across the United States twice. And I've done it twice. And, I did solo and just out there. And to see the beauty of our country and to see it at like 16, 17 miles an hour on a bicycle is the way to see it, instead of going 80 miles an hour on the interstate or flying over all the beauty. But what I remember is just seeing not only the physical makeup of the plains and the mountains and the hilly western Pennsylvania on a bike. Oh my God! And much harder than crossing the Continental Divide or anything like that, because it's just continuous hills. But what amazed me was the way our country is set up. Like you're going through Wyoming, and everyone's a cowboy, and they got cowboy boots and spurs. I mean, they're real cowboys and cowgirls. And then you cross into South Dakota. There's no river there that separates Wyoming from South Dakota, and all of a sudden everyone's Native American. Like there's a line there, but you can walk over that line. Yeah. But it's amazed me that, and you really physically see that when you're taking your time going through it on a bike. And it's stuff like that just, it fascinates me.
What years did you bike across the country?
So I did it in 1992. I was supposed to do it with another guy from Men's Health, one of my colleagues, and we were all set to go, and he backed out last minute. Oh. And then he thought I would back out, and I said, no, man, I'm committed to this thing. I'm doing it. And I think he was scared of the mileage, averaging like 175 miles a day.
Yeah, you did it fat. You didn't take your time.
Yeah, and I did it with packs on my, I was solo. Yeah. Before cell phones, before the internet.
Before Strava and charity miles.
There was none of that stuff out there. And, it was really fun to do. And then when I finished, I said, oh my God, I would do it again right now. But I had to get back to work, and I couldn't. So I did it 2 years later. I went back out in 94 and basically did the same course. It's basically Seattle to New York City.
And, but you finished in Asbury Park, right?
Yeah, I finished, a little south of New York City, and I started northwest of Seattle. But I always just say Seattle to New York City just for reference sake. Yep. And, man, to ride that northern tier of our country, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Yeah, and to see the difference of people that live in these small communities, and not only do they not ever leave their state, they never leave the county they live in, and they're happy. Yep. And that's cool. You know, as long as you're happy, do what brings you happiness. Yep. But yeah, it was the coolest thing to do. And people always ask me about doing it solo. And I said, well, I didn't plan to do it solo, but once I did it solo, I realized I could do it, and I did it solo again. But it's more or less when you're out there by yourself, you have no worries. You don't have to worry about anyone else. Your only concern is, I'd get to the town that I needed to finish in so I could stay on this continuous, get 175 miles in. And
so 175 miles a day. How long did it take you? Like 2 weeks?
Yeah, so the first time I did it in 20 days. The second time I did it in 18 days. Jeez. And you add on a lot of miles if you're staying on, like I did. I was always on small country roads.
Right. You're not taking like the direct route.
Yeah, no. If you want to do a direct route, you can do a southern route, like San Diego to Savannah is like 2,800 miles versus, I believe I did like almost 3,200. Staying on country roads But that's the way to do it. You don't want to be out there enjoying the country roads and being out and not being surrounded by cars. Yeah. And I felt that the whole way. I think the busiest part I went through was about 60 miles south of Chicago. I think that was the busiest stretch of the whole going across country. The rest of the time I felt like I was in farmland, and it was just just magical to just see our country at that pace, and to, not only geographically the changes, but the people. And
pretty wild, right?
Yeah, and people offered to help me all the time, and I said, I don't need help. I got money.
Yeah.
I got my bike. I'm good. But they still wanted to give me money.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm all right. I sent packages to the hotels I was staying at that would meet me there with some more power bars and things like that in case I couldn't get them. There are actually some parts like in Wyoming and eastern Washington and Idaho that were pretty isolated, and Montana.
Would you like to go turn around?
Head back this way.
So I'm about to. I signed up. I'm going to do the Race Across America next summer.
Oh my
on
God!
A bike. I haven't been on a bike in a couple of years, but I'm doing it. I've been a guide in the past for an athlete named Jack Chen, who's visually impaired. He's a blind athlete. We've done the Ironman together, and so we're going to be a team of 4 blind riders and 4 pilots. We're the first team of blind riders to do the Race Across America. And I'm really excited. I'm really nervous. I haven't been on a bike, but when he asked me to be his pilot, I can't say no. And I'm so much looking forward to both, me physically being able to see the things that you said that you saw, and experience the country in that way, but to also be with Jack, who's visually impaired and not seeing that, but experiencing it in his way.
Yes.
It's just going to be. It's going to be a special experience.
You are his vision, literally.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
Wow, that's the coolest. That Race Across America. I mean, that always fascinated me. That's one of those other things. I'd never done that race, but it was always like, how do these people do it?
Yeah.
And now they do it in like
a week.
Yeah, and I think it's
8 days or something.
or 8 days and 7 hours or something amazing. But they just ride nonstop. When I did it, I slept in a hotel every night and was off my bike, in the dark hours. Yeah. But I was solo. They have crew and the whole.
Yeah, we're gonna have
a different world.
Everything.
But it's still it's a cool thing to experience.
Have you ever wanted to run across the country or walk across the country?
I still would love to run across the country, because doing it on a bike was fun, but to do it walking, then you're taking your 17 miles an hour down the 3 or 4 miles an hour, and then
you're
really
seeing stuff.
Yeah, really seeing more stuff. So, yeah, it would be a dream. I don't know if I physically could do it, but it's always something that I thought about doing. But yeah, I don't know.
We've had a few people go across the United States with charity miles, which is just incredible to me that somebody's using charity miles to do that.
Yeah.
And I've gone out and I've walked a few days with them in different parts of the country, and it's amazing what you see and what you can learn about the country. And actually, we have a young man right now. Not sure if I told you about him. His name is Noah Barnes, and he's walking across the country. He started in Key West, Florida on January 1st.
Oh, my God.
And he just yesterday crossed the border into Idaho.
Oh, wow.
And he's on his way to Blaine, Washington. So he's not just going across the country, but he's going diagonal from Key West to the northwest tip of Washington State.
Over
38
to 4,000
miles.
That's what I got to say,
Now, there's a couple of really unique things about this young man. He's got type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
And he's 11 years old.
Wow,
And I know you probably heard a lot of stories, but
that's an amazing story. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you battle diabetes and then being 11 and doing something like that.
When he started, he was 10.
I don't know how. Whew.
We had him on the podcast. I'll send you that episode. I went out and I walked with him outside of Nashville and then outside of Denver, and it makes me want to do that, because when you see the country in a way that is really unique.
I don't know how young people are that focused and realize that if they did something like this, that it would really be something monumental, not only for themselves but to inspire others. Yep. I obviously did not have that mindset when I was 11. And,
me neither.
No. One of the common questions I hear from Olympic runners that have Olympic medals to their resume and world records and things like that, the one thing they always say, they knew when they were 10 or 11 or 12 that they wanted to be an Olympic runner.
Wow.
Like, how?
I didn't even know that.
How do you... That's a common thread with all of them. Like, they knew at a very young age, this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be in the Olympics. And it's like, wow.
Amazing.
Okay, now I know why I wasn't in the Olympics. When I was 11, I did not think anything like that. But I guess it takes that mindset at such a young age. For this kid, I mean, to walk across the United States, I just can't imagine.
Well, just to paint a picture for everybody out there who can't necessarily see him, I think Bart actually looks a little speechless on Noah's story, and he's heard a lot of stories.
I am speechless on Noah's story. Yeah, I'm inspired and speechless.
So, you mentioned earlier, as we kind of wrap up here, you mentioned, wanting to create a lot more Bart Yassos, and on a personal note, I hope that with Charity Miles, I can inspire people in the way that you've inspired people. But not, for everyone else out there that's listening, I think that we each have the ability to be like Bart and to inspire someone in our life to maybe go for a run with us. Take a run, take a walk.
Yeah.
You don't have to, instead of going out for coffee and sitting down, and, which is also fun, but maybe take that coffee for a walk, or get that coffee after your run, and help inspire someone else to join this incredible community and write their own story. And Bart, I want to thank you for taking a really nice walk, and beautiful where we are.
Yeah, we're in the Rodale Gardens right now. This stuff actually ends up in our cafeteria and our food at lunchtime.
What we got here?
All the herbs. And,
it smells. You could smell like the onion in the air. It smells delicious.
All organic stuff. We got some sunflowers over here. The sunflowers are starting to fade, but some rosemary, some thyme. This stuff all ends up in our salads that we have at lunch.
Wow, love to take.
But we have a little garden club, which is just a volunteer thing.
And that's how you guys Rodale started, right?
Yeah, organic life. Yeah, organic gardening, and now it's called Organic Life. But that's we got some people that work here to play in the garden at home, and they bring it into the office, and it helps our cafeteria because they need some herbs and spices. They literally come right out our door.
Wow.
And here's a garden waiting for them, and it's also visually pretty cool to have.
It's very cool.
Come out here and have lunch and see all this stuff. It's amazing.
I hope that one day Charity Miles can have an office with an organic garden in the backyard.
Yeah, but hey, Gene, you have to be proud of what you've done with Charity Miles and the level it's hit.
Thank you.
It's gone, it's something that's global.
Thank you.
And, I'm sure when you started, you didn't think, wow, this is really going to take off and be like
a
cool global thing and everyone would embrace it, but it happened.
Thank you.
You are the Bart Yasso out there doing this thing, but you had the passion.
Thank you.
Once you had that passion and you want to do it, that's what it takes. And then, but we also talked about opportunity.
Yeah.
If you're given the opportunity, you have the passion, you can go out and make change and encourage and inspire others. So I thank you.
Thank you, Bart. That means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to everyone out there in the Charity Miles community that is helping to drive this train. So thank you for walking with us.
Oh, this was awesome. What a great way.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the next chapter is with you.
Yeah, we'll see.
And what the next book is. So thank you very much. And thanks everyone out there for walking with us. Every mile matters. Thanks, Bart.
Thank you, Gene.
Really, really appreciate it.
Oh,
that was
thank
great.
you.
So cool. Can we get a picture out here?
Yeah, I was going to say, we got to get, let's use this thing. Call it the Rodale Gardens, because that's what it's called.
Hi everybody, Gene here again. Thanks so much for taking the time to walk with me and Bart in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. Hope that you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. If so, please share it with a friend, someone special, someone who you think is going the extra mile. And be sure to tune in again next week, where we'll be walking with a good friend of mine, Iron Jack Chen. Jack is a blind triathlete, a very accomplished blind triathlete. He and I raced in the Florida and the New York City Ironman together. I've had the honor of being his guide in those races, and racing with Jack has been one of the coolest, most meaningful experiences of my life. He and I are actually training for another big race together, which we're doing next summer, and I'll let him tell you about that in the interview. And Jack is racing to change the way that blind people and people with disabilities see themselves. He's an incredible person, and I know it's going to be a really special interview next week, so be sure to tune in then, and until then, every mile matters.